Customer sa isang cafe sa Taiwan, inararo ng kotse.
Nakaligtas kaya mga biktima mula sa insidente? Ang kanilang kondisyon ating sisiyasatin maya-maya. Magandang gabi. Ako po si Rikki Mathay.
Ako si Rikki Alagao, Flores. Ito ang mata ng Agila International. Para naman sa mga headlines ngayong araw ng Martes.
ASEAN Maritime Security Dialogue sa Manila, kasado na bukas.
Pilipinas, hindi kukonsintihin ang anumang pambabasto sa soberanya ng bansa.
Taiwan, bukas makipagdialogo sa China para sa kapayapaan sa rehiyon.
Ceasefire deal ng Ukraine at Russia, kumpirmadong matutuloy.
At 6 na katao patay sa pagguho ng lupa sa Indonesia. Kasado na po bukas ang Association of Southeast Asian Nations sa ASEAN Maritime Security Dialogue na gaganapin sa Maynila.
Inaasahan na sa gaganaping dialogue ay tatalakayin ang mga oportunidad at mga balakid para maisulong ang isang rules-based order sa Asia-Pacific region. Dadalo rito ang mga akademiko, policy elites at maritime practitioners para ibahagi ang pananaw at posisyon ng ASEAN nations hinggil sa issue sa South China Sea. Para kay We Protect Seas President Dr. Jeffrey Ordaniel, mahalaga na mapanatili ng ASEAN Bloc ang sariling strategic autonomy nito sa mga maritime issues. Ipinunto rin ni Ordaniel na kailangan na talakayin anya ng ASEAN nations ang mga hakbang para sa rules-based maritime order sa South China Sea nang hindi sangkot ang Estados Unidos sa China. Samantala, imbitado ang Philippine Coast Guard at National Maritime Council bilang partner sa ASEAN Dialogue. Inaasahan na matatapos ang pagpupulong sa 23 ng Mayo.
Inanunsyo ng Philippine Coast Guard o PCG na kanilang naispatan ang 2 Chinese research vessel sa loob po yan ng Exclusive Economic Zone o EEZ ng Pilipinas. Kinumpirma ni PCG spokesperson Commodore J. Tariela ang presensya ng Xiangyang Hong 302 at Tanso Erhao. Huling namataan ang Xinyang Hong sa layong 180 nautical miles mula sa baybayin ng Rizal, Palawan. Samantala, ang Tanso Erhao naman ay natagpuan sa 130.5 nautical miles mula sa Burgos, Ilocos Norte. Ang 2 Chinese research vessels ay may ginagawang oceanographic mapping at ginagamit ito ng People's Liberation Army Navy ng China. Nagpadala na ang PCG ng aircraft para bantayan at eskortan ang 2 Chinese research vessels.
Hindi kukonsintihin ng Pilipinas ang anumang pambabasto sa soberanya ng bansa. Ito ang muling tiniyak ni Pangulong Ferdinand Marcos Jr. sa ika-127 taong anibersaryo ng Philippine Navy.
We stand firm. We will never tolerate any act of disrespect against our sovereignty.
Binigyan diin ng Pangulo na walang susuko o isusuko ang Pilipinas kahit katiting na teritoryo ng bansa. Anya, patuloy na pangangalagaan ng gobyerno ang mga maritime zones at gagamitin ng maritime entitlements alinsunod sa international laws. Samantala, pinasalamatan ni PBBM ang Philippine Navy sa kanilang papel sa katatapos na 2025 midterm elections. Pinangunahan din ng Pangulo ang commissioning ceremony para sa 2 naval assets ng Philippine Navy. Ito ay ang BRP Miguel Malvar o FFG 06 at ang BRP Albert Magini.
Para naman po sa libu-libong motorisang dumaraan sa EDSA araw-araw, sisimulan na po sa kalagitnaan ng Hunyo ang rehabilitation ng kahabaan ng EDSA. Ayon sa Department of Transportation, ang gagawing rehabilitasyon ng EDSA ay bilang paghahanda para sa hosting ng Pilipinas para sa ASEAN Summit sa 2026. Sa kabila nito, tiniyak naman ng ahensya na operational pa rin ang EDSA busway. Inabisuhan na rin ng DOTR ang publiko at mga motorista na asahan na ang mabigat na trapiko sa panahon ng rehabilitation. Samantala, naghahanda na rin ang Department of Public Works and Highway na simulan ang mga pagkukumpuni sa kahabaan ng EDSA.
Handang-handa na si Vice President Sara Duterte sakaling matuloy na sa Senado ang kanyang impeachment trial. Ayon sa bise, inaasahan niyang makita ang anyay bloodbath o madugong labanan ng legal na argumento sa magiging pagdinig sa Hulyo. Bilang mga abogado, alam nila ang galawan ng mga abogado at marami silang paraan sa batas as a legal recourse para sa kanilang mga kliyente. Pero inamin ng bise na hindi nais ng kanyang legal team na matuloy ang proseso sa Senado. Gayunman ay muli niyang sinabi na nakahanda siya at mapayapang tatanggapin ang anumang magiging hatol sa kanya ng impeachment court. Susunod, Taiwan bukas makipag-ugnayan sa China?
US President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin nag-usap ng mahigit 2 oras.
At mga Palestinians pinalalayas mula sa Khan Yunis. Iba pa pong mga balita sa pagbabalik ng mata ng Agila International.
Trask? Ng usap-usapan, alin ba ang dapat paniwalaan?
Magandang umaga, Pilipinas! Luzon, Visayas at Mindanao. Siyempre po, worldwide.
Balitang may basehan, komentaryong may laman. Kasama sina Jen Subarjaga at Nelson Lubao.
Tuloy ng paglilingkod bayan.
Balita, komentaryo, totoo. 100%. Lunes hanggang Biyernes, alas 5 ng umaga, dito lang sa NET25.
Let's get together sa NET25. Sa NET25.
Bukas makipagdialogo ang Taiwan para pag-usapan ang kapayapaan sa rehiyon sa kabila ng tumitinding tensyon sa pagitan nila ng China. Muling nanindigan si Taiwanese President Lai Ching-te kasabay ng panawagan para sa mas matatag na depensa ng isla. Sa kanyang talumpati ngayong Martes sa Presidential Office sa Taipei, binigyan diin ni Lai na ang kapayapaan ay walang presyo, gayon din na wala umanong nananalo sa digmaan.
只要对等尊严，台湾很乐意跟中国进行交流合作，透过交流来取代围堵，透过对话来取代对抗，朝和平共荣的方向来发展。台湾是一个热爱和平的国家，台湾社会与人为善，我也是坚定地追求和平。 因为和平无价，战争没有赢家。但是呢，我们对和平的追求固然有理想，但不能够有幻想。
Bagamat nais nila ay nakausapin ng China, paulit-ulit na itong tinanggihan ng Beijing kung saan tinuturing ng China sila'y bilang isang separatist at patuloy na iginiit ang pag-aangkin nito sa Taiwan na kanila umanong pag-aari. Git nila ay tanging mamamayan ng Taiwan ang may karapatang magpasya sa kanilang kinabukasan. Ayon sa mga ulat, inaasahang maglulunsad muli ng military drills ang China bilang tugon sa anibersaryo ng panunungkulan ni Lai. Kamakailan lamang ay isinagawa ng China ang Straight Thunder 2025A War Games kasunod ng mga naunang joint sword exercises. Batay sa ulat ng Taiwan Defense Ministry, may 6 na eroplanong militar at 11 barko ng China na na-detect malapit sa isla sa loob ng nakalipas na 24 oras.
我们会持续不断地强化国防力量，不管是对外军事采购，或是国防自主。第二个是我们会持续强化我们经济发展的韧性，力属台湾布局全球、行销全世界，不会把鸡蛋放在同一个篮子。
Malapit na makita ng buong mundo ang drone mothership ng China. Ayon sa media sources, ilalabas na sa susunod na buwan ng China ang Zhuotian SS UAV, isang dambuhalang sasakyang panghimpapawid na kayang-kayang mag-deploy ng 100 drones ng sabay-sabay. Kayang lumipad ang Chinese mothership sa flight altitude na 15 kilometers. Impressive din ang range nito na aabot sa 4,500 miles. Pwede nila itong magamit para sa enhanced surveillance, reconnaissance, and combat operations.
Pinangunahan ni Kim Jong-un ang isang pagsasanay ng puwersang panghimpapawid ng North Korea. Ipinakita naman ng 1st Air Division ang kasanayan nito sa anti-aircraft combat at airstrike drills. Naglunsad ng isang missile ang MiG-29 jet ng North Korea at ayon sa isang analyst, isa itong mid to long-range air-to-air missile na katulad ng ginagamit sa Russia. Inutusan din ni Kim ang lahat ng kanyang military units na maging matagumpay sa paghahanda para sa digmaan. Kamakailan ay ininspeksyon din ni Kim ang isang missile test at dumalaw siya sa mga pagawaan ng mga tangke at bala. Obserbasyon tuloy ng war experts, seryoso sa paghahanda sa digmaan ang North Korea.
Sinabi ng Kremlin na tinalakay ni US President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin ang isang nakakabilib na hinaharap para sa ugnayang Washington and Moscow. Alamin po nga natin kung ano ba talaga nangyari sa 2-hour phone call ni Trump and Putin. Rosel Feria para sa detalye.
Ayon kay Kremlin aide Yuri Ushakov, tinalakay ni Pangulong Donald Trump at Pangulong Vladimir Putin sa tawag telepono ang anyay nakabibilib na hinaharap para sa ugnayan ng dalawang bansa.
Президенты также достаточно подробно говорили о будущем наших отношений. Причем президент Трамп, я могу это сказать, довольно-таки эмоционально высказывался о перспективах этих отношений. Он неоднократно подчеркивал, что выступает за взаимоуважительные, взаимовыгодные отношения с Россией. Он специально подчеркнул, что перспективы двухсторонних отношений после того, как будет в той или иной степени урегулирован украинский конфликт, эти перспективы выглядят впечатляюще.
Dagdag ni Ushakov, tinatrabaho ng Washington at Moscow ang panibagong palit bilanggo.
Естественно, президенты обсудили и вопрос состояния двухсторонних отношений, и оба высказались за дальнейшую нормализацию этих отношений. В том числе конкретно были упомянуты обмены заключенными гражданами двух стран. И президенты отметили, что сейчас прорабатывается очередной такой обмен 9 на 9 человек.
Ayon kay Ushakov, kabilang sa palitan ng bilanggo ang 9 na katao ng bawat panig. Hindi nito binanggit kung kailan isasagawa ang palitan. Dagdag nito, sinabi ni Putin na makikipagtulungan ito sa Ukraine ukol sa isang memorandum para sa isang peace accord sa hinaharap. Ayon naman kay Trump, agad na sisimula ng Russia at Ukraine ang negosasyon ukol sa ceasefire. Sa kabila nito, sinabi ni Ushakov na hindi pinag-usapan ni Trump at Putin ang anumang timeline o schedule para sa ceasefire.
Нет, об этом не говорили, хотя Трамп, естественно, подчеркивал заинтересованность в скорейшем достижении той или иной договоренности. Но о чем президенты договорились, и Это очень четко и объемно информировал прессу уже наш президент сразу же после разговора с Трампом.
Kapwa sang-ayon sina Trump at Putin na magpulong ng personal, subalit wala pa anyang lugar na pinagkakasunduan.
Вопрос будет прорабатываться, но конкретно пока что лидеры не условились по ее проведению и пока еще не назвали место возможного проведения.
Binigyang diin ni Ushakov ang mainit na pagtanggap ng dalawang lider sa isa't isa.
В русле такого откровенного и дружеского обмена мнениями президенты договорились, что будут созваниваться по мере необходимости. То есть Трамп сказал: Владимир, ты можешь в любой момент поднять трубку, я с удовольствием отвечу, с удовольствием с тобой переговорю. Вот эта концовка тоже характеризует характер разговора, который состоялся между лидерами.
Sa kabilang banda, sinabi naman ni Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky na kinokonsidera ng Kyiv at mga kaalyado nito ang isang high-level meeting sa pagitan ng Ukraine, Russia, Estados Unidos, mga bansa sa Europa, Union countries at Britain bilang bahagi ng tulak na wakasan na ang labanan sa pagitan ng Russia at Ukraine.
Ми розглядаємо в будь-якому випадку можливість ще раз зустрічі всіх команд. Хочемо на високому рівні. Америка, Україна, Росія і європейські НСА, представники тих країн, які зараз звучали, так, і плюс Великобританія. І така зустріч може відбутись в Туреччині, в Ватикані.
Dagdag ng Ukrainian President, hiniling rin ito kay Trump na huwag magdedesisyon tungkol sa Ukraine nang hindi sila isinasali.
Третє, я попросив його перед його розмовою з Путіним не приймати рішень про Україну без нас. І для нас це принципові речі.
Noong isang linggo, nagsagawa ng negosasyon ang Ukraine at Russia sa Istanbul sa utos ng Estados Unidos. Idiniin sa mga pag-uusap kung gaano kalayo sa isa't isa ang mga pananaw ng Moscow at Kyiv pagdating sa kung paano wawakasan ang labanan na ngayon nasa ika-4 na taon na. Rosel Feria para sa Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Kinumpirma ni US President Donald Trump na tuloy na ang negosasyon para sa ceasefire deal sa pagitan ng Ukraine at Russia, kasunod ng pag-uusap nila ni Russian President Vladimir Putin.
We just spent 2.5 hours talking to Vladimir Putin, and I think some progress has been made. It's a terrible situation going on over there. 5,000 young people every single week are being killed. So hopefully we did something. We also spoke to the heads of most of the European nations, and we're trying to get that whole thing wrapped up.
Ayon kay Trump, may ilang progreso na sa usaping pangkapayapaan at inabisuhan na niya ang mga lider ng Ukraine, European Union, France, Germany, Italy at Finland.
I think something's going to happen. It's a very big egos involved, I tell you. Big egos involved, but I think something's going to happen. And if it doesn't, I'd just back away and they're going to have to keep going. Again, this was a European situation. It should have remained a European situation. Should have remained, but we have, because the past administration felt very strongly that we should be involved, and we got involved much more than Europe did in terms of the money and.
Gayunpaman, ayon sa Kremlin, matagal pa ang proseso at wala pang konkretong petsa ng tigil putukan. Tumanggi rin si Trump sa pagpataw ng bagong parusa sa Russia dahil baka raw lalong lumala ang tensyon. Pinuri naman ni Putin ang panawagan ni Trump para sa direktang usapan habang si Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky ay nagpahayag ng kahandaang makipag-usap sa Russia sa anumang paraan na magdadala ng mabuting resulta para sa rehiyon. Ilan sa mga posibleng lugar para sa susunod na pagpupulong ng ceasefire deal ay ang Vatican, Turkey at Switzerland.
Действительно, этот разговор состоялся, продолжался более 2 часов.
Хочу отметить, что он был очень содержательным и весьма откровенным. И в целом, на мой взгляд, в этой связи весьма полезным. Прежде всего, я поблагодарил президента Соединенных Штатов за поддержку со стороны США возобновления прямых переговоров между Россией и Украиной по поводу возможного заключения мирного соглашения. По поводу возобновления переговоров, которые были прерваны украинской стороной, как известно, еще в 2022 году. Президент Соединенных Штатов высказал свою позицию по поводу прекращения боевых действий, перемирия. И со своей стороны отметил также, что и Россия выступает за мирное урегулирование украинского кризиса. Мы должны просто определить наиболее эффективные пути движения к миру. Договорились с президентом Соединенных Штатов о том, что Россия предложит и готова работать с украинской стороной над меморандумом по поводу возможного будущего мирного договора с определением ряда позиций, таких как, например, принципы урегулирования, сроки возможного заключения мирного соглашения и так далее, включая и возможное прекращение огня на определенное время в случае достижения соответствующих договоренностей.
Sinuspindi mula sa tungkulin si International Criminal Court or ICC Prosecutor Karim Khan habang isinasagawa ang investigasyon sa mga aligasyon na misconduct. Ayon sa opisyal na pahayag ng ICC, pansamantalang pamumunuan ng Deputy Prosecutors na sina Najat Shamim Khan at Mame Mandiaye-Niang ang Office of the Prosecutor upang matiyak ang tuloy-tuloy na operasyon. Inanunsyo ng governing body ng ICC ang external investigation kaugnay ng reklamo laban kay Khan na mariin namang itinanggi ng opisyal. Mababatid na si Khan ay naging tampok sa balita noong nakaraang taon matapos humiling ng arrest warrants laban kina Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, dating Defense Minister Yoav Gallant at tatlong matataas na lider ng Hamas. Siya rin ang namumuno sa investigasyon ng ICC sa umano'y crimes against humanity na isinampa laban kay dating Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte na kasalukuyang nakakulong. Sinabi ni Pangulong Ferdinand Marcos Jr. sa unang episode ng BBM Podcast na bukas siyang makipag-ayos sa pamilya Duterte. Matatandaang nabuwag ang unity team ni Marcos at ni Vice President Sara Duterte matapos ang sunod-sunod na issue sa pagitan ng kanilang mga pamilya. Subalit, binigyan diin ni Pangulong Marcos na ayaw niya ng gulo at gusto niyang makasundo ang lahat ng tao. Marami na anya siyang kaaway at ang kailangan niya ay kaibigan para maayos na magawa ang trabaho sa gobyerno.
Oo, ako ayaw ko ng gulo. Gusto ko makasundo sa lahat ng tao. Mas maganda, marami na akong kaaway. Hindi ko kailangan ng kaaway, kailangan ko kaibigan.
Sinabi rin ni Marcos na nais niya magkaroon ng kapayapaan at katatagan para magawa ang mga trabaho. Mas magandaan niyang magtulungan at kahit hindi magkasundo sa polisiya, ang mahalaga ay maalis na ang gulo.
Hanggat maaari, ako, ang habol ko ay yung stability, peaceful, para magawa namin yung trabaho namin. Kaya ako, laging akong bukas sa ganyan. I'm always open to any approach na alika magtulungan tayo, di ba? Kahit hindi tayo magkasundo sa polisiya, hindi tayo magkasundo. Gawin niyo yung trabaho pero wag na tayong nanggugulo. Wag na natin tanggalin natin yung gulo.
Magpapatupad ng mabigat na parusa ang European Union sa Russia.
I think it is important, as we have all said, 27 of us, that there has to be full and unconditional ceasefire. Ukraine has already agreed to this 60 days or more than 60 days ago, and we have agreed that if Russia does not agree, what we saw yesterday, then we will put more pressure. So we will agree on the 17th package of sanctions today, but we continue on working on the next strong package of sanctions to put more pressure on Russia so that they would also want peace.
Ayon kay European Union Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas, nais nilang panagutin ng Russia sa tila paulit-ulit nitong pagtangging makilahok sa formal na peace dialogue sa Ukraine.
Ich glaube, man kann sagen, das Gespräch gestern hat wieder einmal bestätigt, Erklärungen werden abgegeben von russischer Seite, aber Beweise für erklärte Absichten gibt es bislang nicht. Er ist nach wie vor nicht zu Zugeständnissen bereit. Er spricht nur von Waffenstillstand zu seinen Bedingungen, also zu den bekannten Bedingungen wie kein NATO-Beitritt, Abtretung der besetzten Gebiete und vieles andere mehr. Er spielt offenbar, Wladimir Putin spielt offenbar weiter auf Zeit, auch das kann man sehr klar erkennen.
Isasabay nila ang nasabing pagpapatupad ng parusa sa pagtatapos ng EU-UK Summit. Isaan niyang maaring mabigat na aksyon na magagawa ng EU laban sa Russia ay ang pagpuntirya sa shadow fleet ng Russian oil tankers at ang paghihigpit ng freedom of access ng mga Russian sa ibang bahagi ng kontinente. Sa ngayon ay ito na ang magiging pang-17 sanction package ng European bloc laban sa Russia. Kasunod dito ng naganap na high-level talk sa pagitan ni Donald Trump at Russian President Vladimir Putin, kung saan sinabi ni Trump na hindi niya nakikita ang benepisyo ng pagbibigay ng parusa sa Russia dahil pinapalala lamang nito ang sitwasyon. Giit naman ng EU na itong pamamaraan ng kanilang koalisyon na puwersahin ang Russia na tumugon sa mga demanda ng Ukraine.
It takes two to want peace. It only takes one to want war. And Russia clearly wants war, whereas Ukraine wants peace. So in order to make Russia want peace, also we need to put more pressure on Russia.
To Brexit or not to Brexit? Yan ang tanong na muling nabuhay matapos magkipagkasundo si British Prime Minister Keir Starmer sa European Union. Subalit para kay Starmer, ang paglagda nito sa reset deal ay pagbabalik sa world stage ng Britanya. Joyce Cabansag po para sa iba pa mga detalye.
Bumisita sina British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, EU President Ursula von der Leyen, at European Council President Antonio Costa sa HMS Belfast sa London. Ito'y matapos nilang lagdaan ang makasaysayang trade at defense reset deal ng United Kingdom at European Union. Ang pagpupulong ng tatlong leader ay lubhang mahalaga dahil sinasabing ito ay isang post-Brexit cooperation sa pagitan ng Britanya at European Union. 9 na taon na rin kasi ang nakalipas simula nang umalis ang Britanya sa EU. Ngayon ay nakipagkasundo na si Starmer sa EU na makipagtulungan ito na palakasin ang kanilang depensa. Palalawigin din nila ang kanilang kalakalan at negosyo bilang countermeasure sa Trump tariffs. Bukas naman para sa ilang mga taga-London ang desisyon ni Starmer na muling maging malapit sa European Union. May mga nagpahayag na hindi nga dapat umalis ang Britanya sa nasabing trading bloc.
Yes, I do think we should be trying to get closer ties to the EU. They seem to have done something quite softly, which I find it hard for anyone to criticise, really. Obviously, at heart, I'm very sad we left the EU, and that colours my opinion. But I do think that in this particular measure will be good for everyone overall.
I feel that I agree with the freedom of movement, but I think with Brexit, I think there was a lot of strong views from maybe the older generation because they'd experienced something like that before, but I'm just not quite seeing the benefit of it for us. So I'm open.
Yeah, we absolutely should be trying to get closer. We need to build trade with any countries that we can trade with. I don't see any harm in that. I suppose it comes back to the Brexit question, whether we should have exited the EU to begin with, really. I think fundamentally that was a question that should never have been put to the public, if you want my opinion on that. far too complex for the public to decide that on a referendum.
Para sa experts, mahalaga ang naturang reset deal lalo na at humaharap ang Europa sa banta ng Trump tariffs at tigmaan dulot ng gulo ng pagitan ng Russia at Ukraine. Ito po si Joyce Cabansag para sa mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Gusto nang makipagbati ni Prince Harry kay King Charles at sa buong royal family. Ano kaya ang reaksyon ng mga taga-London sa hiling na ito na royal reconciliation ni Harry? Si DJ Angelo Cabansag para sa report.
Welcome sa ilang taga-London ang sinabi ni Prince Harry na gusto nitong makipagkasundo sa kanyang pamilya. Ilang oras matapos ibasura ng korte ang apela ni Harry na ibalik ang kanyang personal security. Sinabi rin ng Duke of Sussex na nalulungkot siya dahil hindi niya maibabalik pa sa United Kingdom ang kanyang pamilya.
There have been so many disagreements, differences between me and some of my family, but you know, there is. I would love reconciliation with my family. There's no point in continuing to fight anymore. As I said, life is precious. I don't know how much longer my father has. He won't speak to me because of this security stuff. But it would be nice to reconcile. I can't see a world in which I would be bringing my wife and children back to the UK at this point. And the things that they're going to miss is, well, everything. You know, I love my country. I always have done, despite what some people in that country have done. So, you know, I miss the UK. I miss parts of the UK. Of course I do, and I think it's really quite sad that I won't be able to show, you know, my children my homeland.
Para sa ilang taga-London, bahagi pa rin ng royal family si Prince Harry. Kaya dapat lamang na maayos na ang relasyon ni Harry sa kanyang amang si King Charles at sa kapatid na si Prince William.
I think that would be nice. I think it's sad when families break down, and I think him and his brother were very close growing up. They went through a really tragic time when his mother died, and I think they were good mates. And I think, unfortunately, all of what's happened has just split everybody, hasn't it? And I think that's sad, you know. And then, you know, their children will probably want to still be friends with their cousins. And why should that all be broken down because of other generations' issues?
Nag-ugat ang tampuhan ng mag-aama dahil nagpa siya sina Harry at Meghan Markle na huminto na sa kanilang royal duties noong taong 2022. Pagkatapos nito ay lumipat ang mag-asawa sa Estados Unidos at mas pinili ang pribadong pamumuhay. Nag-sit-in interview din sila sa US show ni Oprah Winfrey. Isang bagay na ayon sa royal experts ay hindi umano nagustuhan ng royal family. Naglabas din si Harry ng biography niyang Spare, kung saan nagkwento ito tungkol sa umano'y mga hinanakit niya sa kanyang pamilya. Ang mga ginawang ito ni Harry ang naging dahilan kaya tuluyan na siyang hindi kinausap ni na King Charles at Prince William. Nawalan din ng Sussex family ng personal security dahil bumaba na sila sa kanilang royal duties. Dahil dito, naniniwala ang ibang taga-London na tama lang ang desisyon ng mga otoridad na wag nang bigyan ng security detail sina Harry at Meghan. May ilan ding nagsasabi na wala na silang pakialam sa mga ginagawa ni Harry sa buhay niya ito dahil iniwan na raw nito ang British monarchy.
I'm indifferent, completely indifferent. I really don't care what Harry does. He's like a person I've never met. I'm not interested in him or the king. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Wala namang inilabas na pahayag ang Buckingham Palace tungkol sa royal reconciliation na nais na mangyari ni Prince Harry. Si DJ Angelo Cabansag mula sa United Kingdom para po sa mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Nagsalita na ang spokesperson ng United Nations patungkol sa isyu ng umano'y panghaharang ng Israel sa aid deliveries na pumapasok sa Gaza. Narito ang report ni Asi Sakmar.
Noong Lunes, sinabi ni UN spokesperson Stefan Dujarric na mas maigi ng kakaunting truck ng tulong para sa mga nangangailangan sa Gaza kaysa naman wala.
Tom Fletcher, the emergency relief coordinator, said today in a statement that Israeli authorities have temporarily allowed us to resume aid delivery resume limited aid delivery into Gaza following 11 weeks of a complete blockade and amid a spike in the military offensive. This is a welcome development that should remain in place. Today, he said 9 of our trucks were clear to enter via the Karim Shalom crossing, but it is a drop in the ocean of what is urgently needed, and significantly more aid must be allowed into Gaza starting tomorrow morning.
9 trucks, not enough, obviously, but like how many trucks would be enough? Are we talking about dozens, hundreds?
Hundreds.
Ayon kay UN Aid Chief Tom Fletcher, pumayag ang Israel na makapasok ang 9 na aid trucks sa Gaza na dadaan sa Kerem Shalom Crossing. Ito ay matapos ang 11 linggong walang ni isang truck ng tulong ang nakarating sa teritoryo.
Given the infinitesimally small number of trucks and supplies that are going in, it's going to create outsized expectations, which only increases the security risk both for our own staff and for the recipients. Hopefully there will be more tomorrow, right? But this drop by drop, truck by truck approach nowhere meets the needs of the civilians in Gaza.
Matagal nang iginigiit ng UN na kailangan ng Gaza ang hindi bababa sa 500 truck ng tulong kada araw. At ayon sa World Food Program, higit sa 116,000 metric tons ng pagkain na sapat para sa 1 milyong tao hanggang 4 na buwan ay handa nang maipasok sa teritoryo. Sa kasalukuyan, hindi pa malinaw kung gaanong aid ang papayagang papasukin at kung paano ito pamamahagi bago ilunsad ang US-sponsored plan na tinanggihan ng UN at ng iba pang mga grupo.
We don't need another partner. We don't need a newly minted humanitarian partner to tell us how to do our work in Gaza. There is a system which has worked, and it has worked successfully. What we need in Gaza is what the Secretary General has been called for, a ceasefire, right? Until we get that ceasefire, we need to get humanitarian aid in. We need to get the hostages out. We understand there are discussions going on with the help of the mediators, with the help of the U.S., the help of Qatar, the help of Egypt, to get Israel and Hamas to agree. We need that to happen. In the meantime, we will continue to do our work proudly under very, very difficult circumstances, very dangerous circumstances. As I mentioned, 3 more of our colleagues were killed today, 2 of them on an airstrike in what had been an UNRWA school. But we do not need to bend on our principles on how we do our work.
Ashley Sakmar para sa mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Lumikas sa mga Palestinians na naninirahan sa Khan Yunis matapos i-anunsyo ng Israeli military ang simula ng panibagong operasyon doon. Alamin natin ang mga detalye mula kay Jana Malari.
Noong Lunes, nagmamadaling nilisan ng Palestinians ang kani-kanilang mga tahanan, bitbit kahit ang matatandang kamag-anak sa kanilang mga likod o tulak ang mga bata sa mga upuang digulong. Ito ay dahil sa evacuation order na kanilang tinanggap mula sa militar ng Israel. Sakop ng paglikas ang mga distrito mula sa Khan Yunis hanggang sa Al-Mawasi sa Weston. Ayon sa mga lumilikas, hindi nila alam kung saan na naman sila pupulutin sa hindi mabilang na beses na paglisa ng kanilang mga tinutuluyan dahil sa labanan sa pagitan ng Israel at Hamas.
مش عارفين وين نروح احنا ابرياء مدنيين عزل مش عارفين وين نروح بدنا اياهم يوقفوا الحرب احنا ما لناش دعوه في كل اللي بتصير هذا حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل طب وين ماخذ ابنك ورايح الحين هذا ابنك ابوه شهيد ما مش عارف وين رايح مش عارف
Anila, unti-unti silang namamatay dahil sa kanilang sitwasyon.
احنا قاعدين بنموت قاعدين كل يوم بنموت على البطيء اي انسان في الكره الارضيه بيقدر يعيش اللي بيعيشه الانسان في غزه ما اعتقدش حدا بيقدر يتحمل اللي احنا متحملينه اليوم سنتين من الحرب، جوع، قتل، دمار، تشريد. كلنا ابرياء، كلهم مدنيين عزل قاعدين بيشردوا فينا.
تعبنا من النزوح، تعبنا من قله الاكل، انا واولادي عندي 22 حفيد. لما يجيني طفل يقول لي تعطيني لقمه خبز، احيانا بكون عندي رغيف بعطيهم اياه وانا بنام جوعانه. تعبنا والله تعبنا. شو بدنا نحكي على المعاناه؟ المعاناه واضحه من غير ما نحكي. طلع العالم، هذا شو ذنبهم؟ اللي عنده مقعد واللي عنده معاق، وين نروح؟ حتى لو بدنا نروح على البحر ما فيش امان، عمالهم بيحروا الاطفال وهم بالخيام. عمالنا بنموت على البطيء، احنا بنموت على البطيء، قتلونا اريح. لا اكل، عمالهم حصرونا، لا اكل ولا شرب ولا شيء. حتى مونيتنا اللي كانت عندنا برضه راحت، عجلنا فيها، عجلنا بالعدس، عجلنا بالمعكرونه. ماشي احنا شعب صابر، بس لبعد الصبر احنا بشر.
Noong Lunes, pinanindigan ni Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu na kokontrolin ng Israel ang buong Gaza sa kabila ng pamemressure ng ibang mga bansa na tigilan na ang pangaharang nito sa aid supplies para sa teritoryo. John Malari para sa mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Susunod, 6 patay sa isang landslide sa Indonesia.
China binoboykot ang US product sa kabila ng pagtanggal ng taripa.
At concert ni Kanye West sa South Korea, kanselado. Mga detalye po ng mga balita niyan at iba pa mga balita sa pagbabalik pa rin ng Mata ng Agila International.
Crass Construction.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba, sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. Ilalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa New Era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
At nagbabalik ang Mata ng Agila International sa pagpapatuloy po ng ating mga balita ngayong gabi. Nasawi ang 6 na minero sa isang gold mine sa Indonesia matapos ang pagguho ng lupa sa nasabing lugar. Ayon sa lokal na ulat, higit sa 6 na biktima ay hinahanap pa ng emergency services ang 14 na ibang minero sa gumuhong minahan. Nakaligtas naman ang 4 na iba pa matapos makatakas mula sa landslide. Nagpadala na ng 40 rescuers kabilang ang mga pulis at militar ang gobyerno ng West Papua Province para tumulong sa pag-retrieve ng mga katawan ng mga nasawi.
Bumagsak naman ang bubong ng Mingyongdu Drum Tower sa Shanghai sa China. Ang gusali ay kilala bilang isang heritage site sa China mula sa kasaysayan nito noong Ming Dynasty. Ayon sa lokal na ulat, walang nasaktan mula sa pagguho ng bahagi ng gusali pero nakapagtala naman ang mga otoridad ng malaking danyo sa insidente. Aabutin kasi ng 3.41 million won ang gastusin para kumpunihin ang mga kasiraan sa drum tower. Samantala, nilagyan na ng cordon at safety barriers ang paligid ng gusali para sa kaligtasan ng mga bumibisita sa heritage site.
Isang wind turbine sa Lower Saxony, Germany ang nasunog. Ayon sa inisyal na ulat, katatapos lamang ayusin ang makina ng wind turbine nang bigla itong magliyab. Walang nagawa ang mga bumbero para maapula ang pagkalat ng apoy. Sa taas at laki kasi ng wind turbine, hindi ito kayang abutin ng high-pressure water hoses ng mga bumbero. Iniimbestigahan pa rin ng mga otoridad ang dahilan ng naturang insidente.
Sugatan ng 13 katao sa Taiwan matapos humarurot ang isang kotse sa loob ng cafe. Sapul sa CCTV ang ilang sandali bago maganap ang trahedya. Mapapansin na payapang nakaupo at bumibili ang mga customers ng cafe na tila isang karaniwang araw lamang ito para sa kanila na magkape. Pero makaraan ng ilang segundo ay sumulpot ang itim na kotse at sinalpok ang dalawang babaeng nakaupo sa may entrada ng gusali. Nagkalat ang maraming bubog at nawasak ang glass door ng cafe dahil sa lakas ng impact ng pagsalpok ng sasakyan. Agad namang sumaklolong paramedics sa lugar para tumulong sa mga biktima. Dinala ang 13 sugatan sa ospital habang nagtamo rin ang mga ito ng maraming bali sa katawan. Nakaligtas naman ang driver ng sangkot na kotse at kasalukuyang nasa kustodiya na ito ng pulisya para sa interrogation. Inimbestigahan na ng mga otoridad ang sanhi ng insidente.
Tumilapon at bumagsak sa kanal ang isang motorcycle rider sa India matapos suwagin ito ng isang toro habang bumabiyahe. Sa pulpo sa CCTV, naku, ayan o ang eksaktong pag-atake ng hayop sa kaawa-awang motorista. Hindi naman nagtamo ng seryosong pinsala sa katawan ng rider, subalit naiwan siyang basang-basa ang katawan. Samantala, kaagad na tumakas ang toro na tila walang nangyari sa kanilang dalawa ng rider. Sa huli, iniwan ng rider ang kanyang motor sa daan para pagnilayan ang naging insidente. Kamustahin naman po natin ang lagay ng relasyon sa pagitan ng Estados Unidos at ng Canada. Ano po kaya ang tugon ng mga Canadians sa mga taripa at bagong pahayag ni US President Donald Trump? Narito po si NET25 correspondent Cherry Recolizado para sa balitang yan.
Tila ang mga naunang prediksyon ay nagkakatotoo. Ayon sa bagong ulat ng Statistics Canada, ang mga produktong mula Amerika at biyahe patungo rito ay binoykot ng mga Canadian bilang pagtutol sa mga taripang ipinapataw at mga pahayag ni Pangulong Trump laban sa Canada. Ayon sa ulat, bumaba ng humigit kumulang 15% ang bilang ng mga Canadians na bumabalik mula sa US gamit ang sasakyan noong buwan ng Abril, kumpara noong parehong buwan noong nakaraang taon. Bumaba naman ng humigit kumulang 35% ang bumalik sakay ng eroplano. Dagdag pa rito, ang porsyento ng mga residente ng US na nagtutungo sa Canada ay bumaba ng humigit kumulang 10% kumpara sa parehong buwan noong nakaraang taon. Naniniwala ang mga eksperto na bagamat kumpiyansa ang ilang mga Canadian na magtungo sa US, may mga ilan pa rin na naninindigan sa pagtutol sa mga pahayag ni Pangulong Trump at sa pagtrato laban sa Canada. Ang ilan naman sa kanila ay tila nangangamba na tumawid ng US border dahil sa mga insidente ng mga Canadian na ikinulong o dumaan sa mas mahigpit na mga border check. Sa tansya ng mga eksperto, ang mga ganitong takbo ng pangyayari ay maaaring makaapekto sa 2026 US midterm elections dahil nakikita na ng mga Amerikano ang pinsalang dulot sa ekonomiya ng pagboykot sa pagbiyahe at pamimili ng mga Canadian sa kanilang produkto. Cherry Recolisado, Toronto, Ontario, para sa mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Sinimulan na ni Filipino boxing icon Manny Pacquiao ang kanyang ensayo para sa nalalapit niyang pagbabalik sa boxing ring. Isinagawa niya ang pagsasanay sa pamamagitan ng pagtakbo sa Pan Pacific Park sa Los Angeles. Ayon sa 46 anyos na dating senador, na isang panibagong kabanata ito sa kanyang buhay kung saan siya ay inspired at puno ng motibasyon. Handaan niya siyang ipakita sa mundo ang kanyang mga kakayahan pa. Inialay din niya ang laban para sa mga boxing fans niya na hindi pa natatapos ang labanan. Nakatakdang labanan ng 8th Division boxing champion na si Pacquiao, si Mario Barrios para sa WBC Welterweight Championship sa darating na Hulyo 19. Bago nito ay tatanggap naman ng pagkilala si Pacquiao sa buwan ng Hunyo matapos na ma-induct siya sa International Boxing Hall of Fame. Huling laban ni Pacquiao ay noong 2021 kung saan tinalo siya ni Biyernes ng Cuba. Matapos noon ay nagkaroon ito ng ilang exhibition fight kabilang ng 6 na rounds na laban kay DKU ng South Korea noong December 2022.
Umangat palalo ang world ranking sa Women's Tennis Association o WTA ni Pinay tennis star Alex Ayala. Sa pinakabagong listahan na inilabas ng WTA ay nasa pang-69 ang pwesto ngayon ni Ayala. Ang pagangat sa ranking ni Ayala ay kahit na ito ay maagang nabigo sa unang round pa lamang ng Italian Open noong nakaraang linggo. Nananatiling nasa unang pwesto si Arina Sabalenka habang ang nakasama ni Ayala sa doubles ng Italian Open na si Coco Gauff ay nasa pangalawang pwesto na. Magugunitang noong nakaraang buwan ay rank 72 ang Pinay tennis star. Ito na po ngayon ang pinakamataas na ranking na kanyang nakuha sa kanyang tennis career. Kinansela ng e-commerce company na kupang ang concert ni Kanye West sa South Korea. Hindi po idinitalya ng kupang at ng Interpark Ticket Outlet ang dahilan ng cancellation. Subalit ayon sa ilang ulat, dahil daw ito sa panibagong kontrobersya na kinasasangkutan ni West na kilala na ngayon sa pangalang Ye. Naglabas si Ye ng kantang may title na Hi Hitler. May mga lyrics itong pinupuri niya ang Nazi leader na si Adolf Hitler. Sinabi ng kupang at Interpark na fully refundable ang mga tickets na nabili para sa May 31 concert ni Ye sa Incheon. Sa iba pang mga balita, napaantig ng 2 panda cubs sa Sichuan, China ang puso ng mga turista dahil sa kailang cute na antics sa loob ng kailang enclosure. Naglalaro ng mga makukulay na toys ang 2 panda habang sila ay kinukunan ng video ng mga staff ng Shenzhouping Base ng China Conservation and Research Center for Giant Pandas. Ang mga laruan ay bahagi ng Environmental Enrichment Program ng Beijing para mahasa ang behavior variety ng mga panda. Maisulong ang natural instincts ng mga ito at higit sa lahat ang physical and mental well-being nila. Ang 2 panda cubs ay mga anak ng mga naunang panda sa Research Center na si Kankan and Shidu.
Matatagpuan sa Farmingdale, New York ang tinagurian ng Guinness World Records bilang longest indoor go-kart track. Ayon sa Guinness, ang haba ng naturang indoor track ay may sukat na 1,071.6 meters o katumbas iyan ng 3,515.7 feet. Ang track ay binuo ng RPM Raceway Long Island kung saan binubuksan ito ni NASCAR driver Rikki Jr.
At narito po kami para maghatid ng balita sa anumang dako ng mundo. Magandang gabi. Ako po muli si Rikki Mathay.
Ako si Nina Rikki Alagao Flores. Ito ang mata ng Agila o Agila International. Para naman po sa iba pang mga balitang nangyari rin sa iba't ibang panig ng mundo, punta tayo kay Alma Angeles para sa NET25 World News. Take it away, Alma.
Thank you, Nina and Rikki. Good evening, everyone. I'm Alma Angeles for NET25 World News. On tonight's headlines. First in our news, at the Philippine Navy's anniversary event today, President Marcos Jr. reiterated the government's strong position on safeguarding the country's maritime territory. Former President Joe Biden's prostate cancer diagnosis yesterday has not only put his health in the spotlight, but now it has also reignited a debate about his mental acuity.
Situation. Now, I think, to get to a stage 9, I think that if you take a look, it's the same doctor that said that Joe was cognitively fine.
Look, I will say, whether the right time to have this conversation is now or at some point in the future, we really do need to be honest about whether the former president was capable of doing the job.
Usually prostate cancer doesn't, go full throttle like this too often. When it does, that's usually a bad sign. That's an aggressive cancer for sure, but it does seem odd.
And the news starts now. First in our news, at the Philippine Navy's anniversary event today, President Marcos Jr. reiterated the government's strong position on safeguarding the country's maritime territory. The president told this to Navy personnel. Take a listen.
We stand firm. We will never tolerate any act of disrespect against our sovereignty. We will continue to safeguard our maritime zones and exercise our maritime entitlements in accordance with international law.
He also emphasized that the Philippines will defend its maritime zones and rights under international law.
Wala tayong isusuko, wala tayong papapabayaan. We reaffirm our commitment to being a responsible member of the international community, engaging in all matters diplomatically and upholding the established principles under international law. This obligation is reflected in our proactive and sustained engagement in international defense and security efforts. We also continue to actively participate in various exercises such as the Balikatan, Sama-Sama, Rim of the Pacific, and multilateral naval exercises, Kakadu. We have likewise conducted staff-to-staff talks with other nations, and we have hosted the ASEAN Defense Ministers meeting experts working group on maritime security.
The Philippine Navy's anniversary theme this year is addressing challenges, promoting regional stability, and strengthening maritime security, underscoring its ongoing efforts.
Ladies and gentlemen, around the...
Former President Joe Biden's prostate cancer diagnosis yesterday has not only put his health in the spotlight, but now it has also reignited a debate about his mental acuity. As the former president receives support, questions about his health and memory linger. We have the latest on his condition and the political fallout. Take a look. According to his spokesperson, the diagnosis delivered last week indicates an aggressive form of prostate cancer, and the disease has spread to his bones. Doctors initially detected the cancer as a small nodule on his prostate. Medical experts say that while this type of cancer is not curable, it can be managed with current treatments. This news carries particular weight given Mr. Biden's history as a champion of cancer research. He also led efforts to secure tens of millions of dollars in funding, a cause that became deeply personal following the death of his son Bo from brain cancer. The former president shared his thoughts today, posting online, "Cancer touches us all. Like so many of you, Jill and I have learned we're strongest in the broken places. Thank you for lifting us up with love and support." President Trump expressed his sympathy, writing, "Melania and I are saddened to hear about Joe Biden's recent medical diagnosis. Vice President Kamala Harris conveyed her support, posting, "Joe is a fighter, and I know he'll face this challenge with the same strength, resilience, and optimism that have always defined his life and leadership." Medical professionals indicate that with modern treatments, this diagnosis does not necessarily mean a shortened lifespan.
In a lot of patients that get diagnosed with metastatic prostate cancer, the treatment usually starts the day of the diagnosis. So we're trying to slow down the cancer, which can be fed by hormones or testosterone.
This news about his health comes amid renewed attention on questions surrounding Mr. Biden's mental fitness. The release of leaked audio clips from a 2023 interview with special counsel Robert Hur has reignited this debate. Leaked audio clips from Biden's 2023 interview with special counsel Robert Hur were released Friday, showing the former president at times struggling to recall names and dates.
I don't know. This is what, 2017, 18 area?
Yes.
Remember, in this time frame, my son is either been deployed or is dying. And so it was, and by the way, there were still a lot of people at the time when I got out of this that were encouraging me to run this period.
The timing of the cancer diagnosis has also prompted some to question why it wasn't detected earlier. President Donald Trump weighed in on the diagnosis.
I think it's very sad, actually. And it takes a long time to get to that situation. Now, I think, to get to a stage 9, I think that if you take a look, it's the same doctor that said that Joe was cognitively fine. There was nothing wrong with him. Well, he said, if it's the same doctor, he said there was nothing wrong there, and that's being proven to be a sad situation. There are things going on that the public wasn't informed, and I think somebody's going to have to speak to his doctor, if it's the same, or even if it's two separate doctors. Why wasn't the cognitive ability, why wasn't that discussed? And I think the doctor said he's just fine, and it's turned out that's not so. It's very dangerous. Look, this is no longer politically correct. This is dangerous for our country. Look at the mess we're in. You're talking about all these questions on Ukraine and Russia that would have never happened. So it's a very, very sad situation, and I feel very badly about it. And I think people should try and find out what happened.
Yeah, look, I mean, first of all, of course, we wish the best for the former president's health. And, it sounds pretty serious, but hopefully he makes the right recovery. Like, I will say, whether the right time to have this conversation is now or at some point in the future, we really do need to be honest about whether the former president was capable of doing the job. And that's no, that you can separate the desire for him to have the right health outcome with the recognition that whether it was doctors or whether there were staffers around the former president, I don't think he was able to do a good job for the American people. And that's not politics. That's not because I disagreed with him on policy. That's because I don't think that he was in good enough health. In some ways, I blame him less than I blame the people around him. And why didn't the American people have a better sense of his health picture? Why didn't the American people have more accurate information about what he was actually dealing with? This is serious stuff.
When the cancer has spread to the bones, that makes it stage 4. That means that the cancer is not curable. There's no treatment available that can cure the cancer. Usually prostate cancer doesn't, go full throttle like this too often. When it does, that's usually a bad sign. That's an aggressive cancer for sure, but it does seem odd.
A Mexican Navy training ship collided with the Brooklyn Bridge on Saturday, resulting in tragedy and a federal investigation. Now, to recall, 2 people were killed, 20 injured, and now investigators are trying to determine what led the ship to smash its masts against the iconic structure.
Officials are investigating why a Mexican Navy training ship hit the Brooklyn Bridge on Saturday, smashing its masts. The crash left 2 people dead and 20 more injured. On Monday, the National Transportation Safety Board said it is looking at the role of a tugboat that helped the ship leave the pier. The engine is another key focus. says NCSB lead investigator Brian Young.
We will look at the status of the engine, we'll look for any failures, we'll look for engine inspections, and we'll talk to the crew on what may have possibly occurred with the engine. And additionally, if the engine has any sort of ECM or electronic control modules, we'll grab that electronic evidence as well.
The accident occurred when the Cuauhtémoc, a tall ship with masts and rigging, left Pier 17 on the East River after sunset on Saturday. Videos online showed the tug pushing the ship's bow, then pulling away as it neared the bridge. It then rushed to the stern, seeming to try to stop the ship from hitting the bridge. The strike knocked dozens of naval cadets off the ship's crossbeams, who were ceremoniously standing there while the ship left the harbor. They could be seen dangling from their harnesses high above the ship's deck. The two who died were a sailor and a cadet. NTSB board member Michael Graham said they plan to speak with the tugboat pilot, ship captain, and crew.
We will be looking into three main areas while we're on scene. First being the crew and the operation of the crew, the vessel and the condition of the vessel, and finally the environment, and that includes the weather, the wind, the current, the tide, and the operating environment of that.
Investigators are seeking more videos and haven't confirmed if the ship had a data recorder.
1 year into his presidency, Taiwan's Lai Ching-te has renewed his call for dialogue with China, stating that Taiwan is happy to have exchanges and cooperation with China, as long as there is reciprocal dignity. He also outlined Taiwan's strategy of strengthening its defenses and diversifying its economy. Take a look.
Taiwan is happy to have exchanges and cooperation with China as long as there is reciprocal dignity. Using exchanges to replace hemming in, dialogue to replace confrontation. Taiwan loves peace. Taiwan society believes in the goodness of people. I too am committed to peace, because peace is priceless and war has no winners. But when it comes to seeking peace, we cannot have dreams nor illusions. We will continue to strengthen our national defense capabilities, whether it is through foreign military procurement or building resilience in our national defense. Secondly, we will continue to strengthen our economic development, grow in Taiwan, and sell our products to the world. We won't put all our eggs in one basket.
Now, if you tried booking a ride in Indonesia today and found your app unusually quiet, you're not alone. Because across the country, hundreds of thousands of ride-hailing drivers, from motorcycle taxis to car drivers, have hit the streets demanding better pay and fairer treatment from the companies they work with.
Nah, kami juga kan rakyat Indonesia juga. Ojol rakyat Indonesia juga, kita menuntut perbaikan kesejahteraan.
The company doesn't think about our fuel needs, parking fee, or other needs. They are only extorting us as drivers.
A phone call between U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin has spurred hopes for a breakthrough in the Ukraine war, with both leaders indicating a willingness to pursue ceasefire negotiations.
We just spent 2.5 hours talking to Vladimir Putin, and I think some progress has been made.
U.S. President Donald Trump on Monday said Russia and Ukraine will immediately start negotiations toward a ceasefire and an end to their 3-year-old war, after holding a call with Russian President Vladimir Putin.
Hopefully we did something. We also spoke to the heads of most of the European nations, and we're trying to get that whole thing wrapped up. What a shame that it ever started in the first place.
After the call with Trump, Putin told reporters in Sochi that efforts to end the war were generally on the right track.
The U.S. president has expressed his position on the ceasefire, and I, for my part, also noted that Russia also favors a peaceful settlement of the Ukrainian crisis. We should simply determine the most effective ways to move toward peace. We agreed with the U.S. president that Russia will suggest and is ready to work with the Ukrainian side on a memorandum on a possible future peace treaty, which defines a number of issues such as the principles of settlement, the terms of a possible peace agreement, and so on, including a possible ceasefire for a certain period of time if the appropriate agreements are reached.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky spoke to Trump one-on-one before the Putin call and then again afterwards in a conversation with other European leaders. He told reporters that he hoped a high-level meeting with Russia, the U.S., and other nations could happen as soon as possible.
We
are considering a meeting of all teams again. We would like it to be at a high level. America, Ukraine, Russia, European countries, and Great Britain. Such a meeting could take place in Turkey, the Vatican, or Switzerland.
Ukraine has said it is ready for a ceasefire now, while Russia has said conditions must be met first. Direct talks last week between Moscow and Kyiv had failed to achieve a truce.
Look, I'd say we're more than open to walking away.
Shortly before the Trump-Putin call, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance told reporters that Washington recognized there was a bit of an impasse.
Look, I think one open question is Vladimir Putin serious about negotiating peace, right? He has made some concessions. He has taken some serious steps in these conversations, but we feel like, we're at a point where we're hitting an impasse, and that's why the president is talking to him on the phone. I think, honestly, that President Putin, he doesn't quite know how to get out of the war.
Trump, who has promised to bring a swift end to Europe's deadliest war since World War II, has repeatedly called for a ceasefire. Putin, whose forces control a fifth of Ukraine and are advancing, has stood firm on his conditions for ending the war, despite public and private pressure from Trump and repeated warnings from European powers.
Gaza is facing a humanitarian crisis with a slow trickle of aid arriving after nearly 3 months of blockade. While Israel permitted a small number of trucks to enter on Monday, the UN is still warning this is insufficient as Israel prepares for further military action and defends its aid distribution plan. Thomas Eyelikeness for more.
Hundreds of trucks are lined up at the Egyptian border with Gaza. They're waiting for the green light to deliver much-needed aid to Gaza's starving population. On Monday, Israel allowed just 9 trucks into the Palestinian enclave. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he relented and is allowing minimal food deliveries after receiving pressure from several U.S. senators who told him about impending famine in Gaza. UN spokesman Stefan Dujarric says the 9 trucks fall far short of what is needed.
To say that this is a drop in the ocean is a clear understatement, right? Of course, 9 trucks is better than no trucks, but we need a massive uptick of humanitarian aid.
Dujarric says Gaza needs at least 500 trucks loaded with aid and commercial goods every day. But Netanyahu says, for now, small food deliveries will continue until the Israeli military and private companies take over the distribution of aid under a U.S.-backed scheme. That plan has been rejected by the United Nations. Dujarric says prior to the blockade, the UN had been in charge of distributing aid, and it worked well.
We don't need another partner. We don't need a newly minted humanitarian partner to tell us how to do our work in Gaza. There is a system which has worked, and it has worked successfully.
Israel's Foreign Ministry Chief Eden Bartal justifies the new distribution system. Bartal says Israel wants to make sure the aid does not fall into the wrong hands.
The purpose of the aid is to help the population, not to support Hamas. This is the rationale behind the new American model for aid presented 10 days ago by U.S. Ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee. Few words about the new model of aid. An international fund, GHF, will operate based on this principle: direct aid to the population in Gaza, but not to Hamas.
Bartal says distribution centers should be operational in a few days. Meanwhile, Israel has told Gazans to evacuate districts in Khan Yunis as it prepares for what it describes as an unprecedented attack on the region. Netanyahu says Israel will control all of Gaza. Dujarric says the time for both sides to put down their arms is long overdue.
What we need in Gaza is what the Secretary General has been called for, a ceasefire, right? Until we get that ceasefire, we need to get humanitarian aid in. We need to get the hostages out. We understand there are discussions going on with the help of the mediators, with the help of the U.S., the help of Qatar, the help of Egypt, to get Israel and Hamas to agree. We need that to happen.
That thought is echoed by this woman. Her husband and son suffered injuries in an Israeli airstrike. She, like many others, long for a ceasefire. She says they don't want aid. They don't want food. They just want to live. They just want the war to stop. Thomas I. Likeness, NET25 World News.
2 children are dead and about 100 families are displaced after a fire tore through a residential area in Santa Mesa, Manila. Now, the fire broke out on Road 12 and on a street around 4 p.m. The Bureau of Fire Protection says strong winds and flammable materials fueled the rapid spread.
Kailangan po natin akyat sa ika-4 na alarma kasi kung titingnan po natin yung structure ng mga nasusunog ay more on light materials. At kailangan din po natin itaas para yung supply ng tubig ay dire-diretso po. Hindi po tayo kapusin. Ang nag-responde pong fire truck natin ay nasa mahigit 30. Kasama na po dyan yung ating mga fire volunteers.
Firefighters reached 4th alarm status before containing the blaze by 7 p.m. In addition to homes, a school and vehicles were damaged. 2 people are hospitalized with injuries. Authorities are now investigating the cause of the fire. Witnesses reported hearing an explosion as the fire spread.
So far po, wala naman pong reported na na-injured, kundi may casualty po tayong dalawa na reported. Ang apektado pong bahay ay nasa 38, more or less, at ang estimated damages po natin ay nasa 400,000 more or less. Mayroon po tayong mga 100 na pamilya na naapektuhan, humigit kumulang. Ay inimbestigahan pa po ng ating arson investigators. Nangangala po sila ng mga karagdagang impormasyon para matingnan kung saan po ang pinagmulan.
The search for 14 missing workers in Indonesia's Papua region has been suspended due to heavy rains.
We from the police, military and search and rescue teams are already at the nearest village of Jingga. And it is estimated that it will take about 2 to 3 hours to reach the place by walking. Please pray that we can reach the scene to search and evacuate the victims. And we, the officers, also stay safe.
A landslide at a gold mine in the Arfak Mountains on Friday killed 6 and injured 4. A team of 40 rescuers is struggling with difficult terrain and weather conditions. Authorities plan to resume the search. Small-scale illegal mining is common in Indonesia and often leads to accidents. Heavy rains in southern China's Guangdong and Guangxi provinces have resulted in at least 6 fatalities and widespread disruption to transportation and power infrastructure. State media reports indicate that the rains triggered severe flooding and geological disasters, prompting the National Meteorological Center to issue multiple heavy rain warnings across several regions. In Guangdong and Guangxi, the downpour has disrupted daily life, leading to significant challenges for residents and businesses. Specifically, at least 10 railway lines connecting the major city of Shenzhen with other urban centers have been forced to suspend operations, causing travel chaos for commuters and hindering the flow of goods. In Guangxi province, over 620,000 households experienced power outages in recent days. We turn now to India, where deadly flooding is impacting the city of Bengaluru. Residents there are wading through knee-high water and the death toll has risen to 3. Officials say the city's drainage canals are overwhelmed. More heavy rain is forecast for the region. Elsewhere in India, the northeastern city of Guwahati is also experiencing severe flooding with streets submerged. And the news continues here on NET25. We'll be right back.
Trask Construction, your trusted partner in hospital building. Trask Construction.
And going now to concerns about the economic fallout from the Sino-US trade war. China is taking steps to stimulate its economy. Today, the country's central bank lowered its benchmark lending rates and major state banks reduced deposit rates. Take a look.
Trade war fears are hanging over China's economy, and Tuesday saw Beijing policymakers play their latest hand in response. The country's central bank cut its benchmark one-year loan prime rate by 1/10 of a percentage point to 3%. Its 5-year rate, key to setting mortgage prices, fell by the same amount. Earlier in the day, several of the country's top commercial banks also cut their deposit interest rates. That was seen as guiding smaller lenders to make similar reductions. One economist told Reuters that all the rate cuts are meant to boost lending and stimulate consumption. The moves are part of a package of measures announced before China and the US agreed a truce on tariffs at talks in Geneva. That deal spurred analysts to raise their forecasts for Chinese growth this year, but huge uncertainty remains. Nomura chief China economist Ting Lu said it would still be quite challenging for Beijing to hit its 5% growth target for the year, unless policymakers step in with more stimulus and reforms. Figures out earlier in the week showed new bank loans tumbling and home prices staying flat, pointing again to areas of weakness in China's economy.
Meanwhile, severe storms have also swept across the central and eastern United States, leaving at least 28 dead and widespread destruction in its wake. On Sunday, a powerful tornado tore through Arnett, Oklahoma, captured on eyewitness video. Similar twisters struck Grinnell, Kansas, damaging homes, knocking down power lines, though no serious injuries were reported. In Bennett, Colorado, a tornado damaged 17 buildings, including homes and a solar farm. Meanwhile, in Newcastle, Oklahoma, a police car was struck by lightning during the storms, caught on video by emergency management officials. Thankfully, no one was hurt. In St. Louis, Missouri, more than 70 tornadoes, hail, and strong winds have battered the region. Power outages and damage continue as weather warnings remain through Tuesday night. The nation of Papua New Guinea is gearing up for a significant milestone, its 50th independence anniversary. In the capital, Port Moresby, a series of collaborative events between the National Capital District and the PNG government have been launched to mark this special occasion. NET25's Echo Ortalesa Quinola reports.
From the Pacific Island nations to Asia to New Zealand to Australia to the United States of America, Capital City Governor Poe Sparkle can join citizens, communities, and diplomatic corps to take part in the nation's Independence Day celebrations. A grand float parade depicts and showcases the creativeness and culture of different nationalities residing in Papua New Guinea. The cheering crowd of spectators evoke feelings of awe and wonder. Designed with a touch of cultural makeup and a glimpse of history, the floats enliven the entire city of Port Moresby.
It's a great start to the 50th anniversary celebration for PNG, so I'm very, very pleased and excited, and I hope our people in the city too, they are all pumped up. They're looking forward to a great celebration.
I am actually from New Zealand, but my heritage is Samoan. The reason why I joined is because I think it's a great milestone. I'm very cultural. I love what this country stands for, and I love the brotherhood or the sisterhood that this country allows for us to come together.
The following day, the Sir Hubert Murray Stadium lights up with performances of artists from New Zealand, Tuvalu, Kiribati, Samoa, and American Samoa.
We wish PNG really all the best as it looks forward in 4 months' time. They'll be celebrating the 50th anniversary. I hope that they will be able to really sustain its efforts and bring progress to the people here in Papua New Guinea. I hope that it's going to be a very successful event this year. Maraming salamat. Mabuhay po tayong lahat.
we could see the smile on the children's and the people's face. So that was a great connection. Like we feel very much part of the people of Papua New Guinea, although we are from different countries, but we are excited to celebrate the 50th anniversary of independence of Papua New Guinea.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Marape appeals to the government and its citizens to unite as the nation prepares. He calls for purpose as the country approaches its Golden Jubilee.
Don't take our sovereignty for granted. From the first election in 1977 up till today, we remain a democracy that has produced prime ministers and governments 10 elections on.
The capital city will continue to run shows and events leading up to the Independence Day celebration on September 16, 2025. In Port Moresby, Papua New Guinea, Eco Hortaleza Quinola for NET25 World News.
And with that, we end tonight's broadcast. For everyone here on NET25, I'm Alma Angeles. Thank you for joining us. Good night.